world moves fast. Your workday? Even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
This podcast is part of E2C Network, where we share the whole Auburn experience.
Hello and welcome to War Horses, the only college equestrian podcast that is going to tell you everything you need to know about conference tournament season. I'm your host, Auburn Elvis. Let's talk about some college equestrian. We're going to jump right into our action. We're going to look at how everything went in our meet recaps. So everything that happened this past week was single discipline meets. These were the two conference tournaments, the ECAC tournament, single discipline, and the ODAC. And I say single discipline for ECAC because the ECAC also has dual discipline teams that we will talk about later, but this was just the single discipline team. So if you've been following along for a while, you'll know that these are typically smaller schools. They only do the jumping seat type riding, so they only do 2 events, not 4 like the dual disciplines do. And we had conference tournament season. So let's get right on into it. Over in the, this was the ODAC tournament. Number 5 Barry was going up against number 4 Swanee. The prediction for this meet was Swanee 9, Barry 1. Let's see what really happened. Fences went 4-1 for Swanee. Flat went 5-0 for Swanee, and that made the final score Swanee 9, Barry 1. Yeah, okay. So the prediction was actually right on that. Good job, stats. Awesome. Okay, so good meet for Swanee. Barry, they've only got 1 win, I think, going into this one. So, the stats weren't very on board with the Vikings, and they didn't do too well. But good job for the Tigers. They've had an up and down season, and to get this win in the postseason was really nice for them. So good job to the Tigers. Moving right along, number 3 Bridgewater against 2 seed Sweetbriar. Now, the prediction for this was Sweetbriar 7, Bridgewater 2. Let's see what really happened. Fences went 4-1 for Bridgewater, and Flat went 4-1 for Sweetbriar. That made the final score a 5-5 tie, and on the tiebreaker, Bridgewater won that 746 to 731.5. So really, really big upset here for Bridgewater. The Eagles, they got it done. Neutral site, neutral horses. They upset Sweetbriar, and they advanced on into the finals. In the other semifinal, we had number 4 seed Swanee. They had advanced, and they got to face number 1 seed Lynchburg. The prediction for this, it was going to be Lynchburg 8, Swanee 2. Let's see what really happened. Fences went 4-1 for Lynchburg. Flat went 4-1 for Lynchburg. That made the final score Lynchburg 8, Swanee 2. So stats got it right again, and that would set up a final. Number 1 Lynchburg going up against Bridgewater, number 3 Bridgewater. Because of the stats, we thought that Sweetbriar was going to advance. They did not, so we didn't run the stats on this, so I'll just tell you what happened. Well, it was mostly Lynchburg from start to finish. Fences went 3-2 for Lynchburg. Flat went 4-1 for Lynchburg. That made the final score Lynchburg 7, Bridgewater 3. So Bridgewater did okay. They got about 3 points, but this was Lynchburg's year in the conference there. They really looked the best from start to finish, and they finished really well. Good job to Lynchburg. Good job to the Hornets there, winning the tournament again. But good job to Bridgewater to come out of nowhere and upset Sweetbriar like that, make it to the finals. That's pretty good. Well, it's better than pretty good. It's real good. Good job, Eagles. All right, so now we're going to go over to the ECAC tournament. In the first round of this, we had Sacred Heart versus Dartmouth. Sacred Heart was 4th seed. Dartmouth was the number 1 seed. Apparently, I didn't have any stats for these because they weren't on the official calendar. We didn't know when these were going to happen. I thought they were going to happen this coming weekend, but they didn't. So, you get no predictions on that when you don't put stuff in the calendar. So, y'all need to get on the ball on that. Anyway, anyway, here's how things went. Fences went 3-1 for Dartmouth. Flat went 3-2 for Dartmouth. That made the final score Dartmouth 6, Sacred Heart 3. So good win for the Green. They beat Sacred Heart. This was Sacred Heart's best season ever. It's kind of a shame for them to get put in the same bracket as Dartmouth because, they had a real shot. If they had been on the other side there, they could have possibly made it to the finals, and we'll talk more about that later about why that's so important. But moving right along, in the other semifinal, we have Centenary versus College of Charleston. Centenary was the 3 seed. Charleston was the 2 seed. Let's see what happened. Fences went 5-0 for Centenary. Flat went 3-2 for Centenary, and that made the final score Centenary 8, College of Charleston 2. Wow, this was another huge upset. Centenary has just been on a tear here recently. About 3-4 weeks ago, they were in last place in the nation among the single discipline teams. They were winless, and then they had 3 home meets. They won all of those, and now here they've won a neutral site meet against a good Charleston team. Really good job for the Cyclones there. And that would set up a championship meet between Centenary and Dartmouth, and here's how things went. Fences went 4-1 for Dartmouth. Flat went 3-2 for Dartmouth. That made the final score Dartmouth 7, Centenary 3. And yeah, your Green are the ECAC champions in single discipline. So good job to Dartmouth to get that championship, but also really good job for Centenary just to get to the finals there. Nobody expected that, and yeah, that's really shocking. That was all of our action. Now let's talk about the impact that has on things. So we're not going to do rankings. We didn't do rankings last week. We're not going to do it again this time. I did the conference standings last week, so I don't need to do that. But what I am going to do is talk about the implications of what we just had in these conference tournaments and how that should impact the invitations that are going to get sent out for the national championship tournament down in Ocala. So 4 teams get invited, and the big issue this season is that there really wasn't a lot of non-conference action between these two conferences aside from Centenary. Centenary did go and ride against a bunch of teams in the other conference, and they really took their lumps, and it apparently paid off. They got a lot of experience riding against good teams, and so when it mattered most, they showed up. So in past years, when you didn't have this much of a divide between the conferences, it was a little bit easier to figure out who the top 4 are. This year, it's going to be tough, but what it's probably going to happen is the 2 teams that made it into the final of each of these conference tournaments is probably going to be the 2 or make up the 4 teams that will get invited. At least that's how I would do it. So let's just get right into it. Here's the 4 teams that I think should get invited to Ocala. The number 1 seed should be Lynchburg. The Hornets looked good for pretty much they looked very good for almost the entire season. They only lost a handful of meets, and they were always on the road. They never lost at home, and they even had 1 or 2 nice road wins, and then, of course, they did win the ODAC tournament, so they're probably the best team in the nation right now. The number 2 seed should be Dartmouth. The Green did not ride nearly as many meets as Lynchburg. Their resume isn't quite as long, but they were perfect at home, and they did just win the ECAC tournament, so yeah, that speaks well of them. Next, I think Bridgewater should be the number 3 seed. The Eagles were perfect at home. They had a road win over Swanee, and then they finished as the runner-up in the ODAC tournament. So yeah, good job for them. And then the final team that I would invite to Ocala is Centenary.
It's a twister! It's a twister!
I would invite them as the number 4 seed. The Cyclones had the most dramatic season in the country. They were winless up until a couple of weeks ago, like I said. And then, they won all their home meets. They followed that up with a deep run in the conference tournament, and they look to be one of the 4 best teams in the country right now. So that's how I would do it. I would seed these also to make sure that the conference winners face the runners-up from the other conference, and that would be intentional because nobody wants to see a repeat of what we just had in the conference tournaments this week. So by mixing it up this way, it'd be really nice to see because, like I said, we didn't have a lot of crossover between these 2 tournaments. So if they do invite these 4 teams, but then somehow seed them so that we get the exact same matchups we just had, that would be a big waste of time and money, and hopefully hopefully the NCAA won't do that, that they would give us, this crossover so we could see Dartmouth go up against Bridgewater and we could see Lynchburg go up against Centenary at a neutral site. Because I think Lynchburg and Centenary had already ridden, but it was at Lynchburg, so let's see how they do at a neutral site. Now, I also mentioned that, we had a lot of good teams this season in the single discipline, and it's crazy just how many good teams there were all the way down to the 7th place team in the rankings. We've never had this much parity in the single discipline before, and this actually would have been a nice year to maybe have 6 teams in the tournament. Then we'd get to see how teams like Sweetbriar, Sacred Heart, and Charleston would do against some teams from other conferences. But again, we only have the 4 spots, so there are going to be some good teams that are staying home. That also means that if the NCAA does invite these teams, we're going to have 2 teams where it will be the first time they've ever been in the national championship tournament. Neither Bridgewater nor Centenary have ever been invited down to Ocala before, so it's going to be special for them if they make it down there. So let's just hope that the NCAA does not screw this up. I doubt they will, but you just never know.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Zootopia 2 has come home to Disney+.
Let's go!
Get ready for a new case.
We're the greatest partners of all time!
New friends.
Gary the Snake.
And your last name?
The Snake.
Dream Team. Get new habitats.
Zootopia has a secret reptile population.
You can watch the record-breaking phenomenon at home. Zootopia 2, now available on Disney+, rated PG. And right now you can get Disney+ and Hulu for just $4.99 a month for 3 months with a special limited time offer. Ends March 24th. After 3 months, plan auto renews at $12.99 a month. Terms apply.
Okay, so with all that out of the way, now let's look into the future with some meet previews. So now we're looking at the dual discipline conference tournaments. The first one we're going to look at is the ECAC. First meet to look at, 4 seed Delaware State going up against 5 seed Minnesota Crookston. Minnesota Crookston did have a one win on the road against South Dakota State. So can they do it again against Delaware State? Well, this is going to be 5-on-5, and that other one was 4-on-4 for them, which gives an advantage to the smaller teams. But anyway, here's how the stats say it should go. Fences is predicted to be a 2-2 tie. Flat is predicted to be a 2-2 tie. Horsemanship is predicted to go 3-1 for Delaware State, and reining is predicted to be a 5-0 sweep for Delaware State. If all that happens, that would make the final score Delaware State 12, Minnesota Crookston 5. So that would be pretty one-sided, but we'll see. Now, I did say that when we talked about the difference between 4-on-4 and 5-on-5, typically your bigger schools, those 5th riders are always better in your bigger schools, so that's almost like a bonus 4 points. And yeah, if you took that away, then you're talking about something in the neighborhood of 8-5 if this was just a 4-on-4 meet, and that's probably accurate. So 12-5, I could see this one going that way. Next meet to look at, 3 seed UT Martin going up against the 2 seed South Dakota State. Fences is predicted to go 3-2 for UT Martin. Flat is predicted to go 4-0 for UT Martin. Horsemanship is predicted to go 4-1 for UT Martin, and reining is predicted to go 3-1 for UT Martin. If all that happened, that would make the final score UT Martin 14, South Dakota State 3. Now, I've been saying this for about a month now that the stats really like UT Martin, and they're the 3 seed here, and they have lost 1 or 2 meets here that you think maybe they wouldn't, maybe they shouldn't, but the stats really like them. And again, I go off historical stats, so if you've got a rider who maybe did really well her first couple of years and maybe this year she's struggling a bit, she's getting some credit for her historical stats, not just how she's doing right now. So that might be some of the discrepancy between the stats and what we're seeing, but who knows? I mean, UT Martin 14 to South Dakota State's 3, that's a bit lopsided. I don't know if it's going to be quite that lopsided, but I could see UT Martin getting the win there. So we'll see. All right, next semifinal would be the winner of the 4-5 seeds going up against UC Davis. So that would be, if everything goes like we're projecting, Delaware State going up against UC Davis. Fences is predicted to go 5-0 for UC Davis. Flat is predicted to go 3-1 1 for UC Davis. Horsemanship is predicted to go 2-1 for Delaware State, and Reining is predicted to go 3-1 for Delaware State. If that happened, that would make the final score UC Davis 10, Delaware State 6. So the stats, they love UC Davis in the jumping seat, but the Western, they're not too confident with UC Davis's riders. So we'll see how that goes. I do think Davis would probably beat either of the teams that would advance. Yeah, 10-6, that could happen. I mean, yeah, we'll see. Okay, so if all that happens, then we would end up with a championship meet between UC Davis and UT Martin. So fences is predicted to go 3-2 for UC Davis. Flat is predicted to go 3-2 for UC Davis. Horsemanship is predicted to go 4-1 for UT Martin, and Reining is predicted to go 4-1 for UT Martin. If all that happens, that would make the final score UT Martin 10, UC Davis is 8. So the stats are predicting an upset here. The stats really like UT Martin, probably a little more than they should. I think UC Davis will do better than 8 points. So we'll see. Well, that is the ECAC tournament. Now let's look over at the Big 12 tournament. We have 2-seed Fresno State going up against 3-seed TCU. Fences is predicted to be a 2-2 tie. Flat is predicted to be a 2-2 tie. Horsemanship is predicted to go 3-2 for Fresno State, and Reining is predicted to be another 2-2 tie. If that happens, and that's a lot of ties, that would make the final score Fresno State 9, TCU 8. Okay, so I could see this. I don't know if we're going to get quite that many ties, but I could see Fresno State barely eking out a win over TCU. Next one to look at, semifinal, number 1 seed Oklahoma State going up against 4-seed Baylor. Here's what the stats think would happen. Fences predicted to be a 2-2 tie. Flat is predicted to go 3-1 for Baylor. Okay, looking good for the Bears. Horsemanship is predicted to go 5-0 for Oklahoma State, and then Reining is predicted to go 4-0 for Oklahoma State. If that happens, that would make the final score Oklahoma State 11 to Baylor's 5. Yeah, I could see this. I could see this meet getting away from the Bears like that. Oklahoma State is good overall. I could see them just going to town in the Western. So yeah, Baylor has had some issues with their Western rides in a lot of their meets. But this will be neutral site, so we'll see. So that would set up a Big 12 championship with Fresno State going up against Oklahoma State. Here's what the stats suggest if we get that. Fences predicted to be a 2-2 tie. Flat is predicted to be to go 3-1 for Fresno State. Horsemanship is predicted to go 3-2 for Fresno State, and Reining is predicted to go 3-1 for Oklahoma State. If all that happens, that would make the final score Fresno State 10, Oklahoma State 8. Wow, okay, that's a little shocking. I gotta say that now Oklahoma State has not they don't have a big resume. Okay, they've ridden fewer meets than anybody else in the country, and they have not looked superlative as of late. They haven't looked great. I don't know. It could be close. We'll see. Okay, now we're going to look at the conference that most of my listeners care about. This is the SEC. 3-seed Georgia going up against 2-seed South Carolina. The stats predict that Fences would go 3-2 for Georgia, that Flat would go 3-2 for South Carolina, Horsemanship would go 3-2 for Georgia, and Reining would go 3-2 for Georgia. If all that happens, that would make the final score Georgia 11, South Carolina 9. I could see this meet going any number of ways. Georgia didn't look great when they hosted Auburn, so that's a strike against them, but they do have a little bit more talent. But South Carolina, boy, they're gamers. They show up. So I don't know how this is going to go. I mean, it could go Georgia 11, South Carolina 9. It could be the flip reverse of that. Also, one of these teams could get hot and just run the other team out of there. So who knows? That one is really difficult to predict. Who knows what's going to happen in that semifinal? All right, and the other semifinal is number 1 Auburn going up against the 4th seed Texas A&M. These two teams just faced off, but it was at Auburn, and of course everybody has a big advantage when you ride at home, and Auburn dusted them, and now it's going to be a lot more even matched. Here's what the stats think would happen. Fences is predicted to go 4-1 for Auburn. Flat is predicted to go 3-2 for Auburn. Horsemanship is predicted to go 4-1 for Auburn, and Reining is predicted to go 3-2 for Texas A&M. If all that happens, that would make the final score Auburn 13, Texas A&M 7. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I could see it being a little closer, but I could see it being about, a 6-point spread there. Yeah, it could be anything. I mean, in fact, Auburn could lose. I mean, Auburn has not done well in the postseason as of late. They just seem to have a problem getting ready for these neutral site meets. They do better on the road than they they do in neutral site meets, which is just crazy. Nobody should be doing better on a road meet than a neutral site meet, but that's Auburn. That's what Auburn's been doing. So if Auburn can put it all together, get their heads on right, and go out there and perform as they're supposed to, they can beat anybody in the nation at a neutral site meet. But that hadn't happened the last 5 years or so. So we'll see. The stats like Auburn because the stats don't know things like trends and just not showing up or the other team showing up or whatever. So we'll go with that. Sure, Auburn. So if Auburn advances, let's say we get an SEC championship with Georgia and Auburn, okay? Fences is predicted to go 3-2 for Auburn. Flat is predicted to go 3-2 for Auburn. Horsemanship will go 4-1 for Auburn. And reining would go 3-2 for Georgia. This was the exact same thing that it predicted for, a little bit different. With fences, Auburn wasn't quite as good. So Auburn is predicted to win against Georgia 12-8. Yeah, I could see that. I could see Georgia winning. I could see South Carolina advancing and then South Carolina beating Auburn. I could see any number of things happening. But the stats, they think Auburn would win. And yeah, sure, let's go with that. So that is our outlook for conference tournament season. This is really cool. This is the best time of year because everybody is on neutral horses and we're all seeing how everybody's going to do. This is where it all matters. If you don't show up here, you're really in trouble. So yeah, we'll see how it goes, and I'll be there. It's always great when Auburn hosts this tournament because lots of fans show up. Auburn also does a good job of making sure that their meets are later in the day on Friday so that people have a chance to get out of school, get off work, and get on over to the Equestrian Center. I have the whole day off work, so I'll be over there for most all of it. So yeah, it's great. And I'll say this: Auburn is really family friendly and pet friendly. You can bring your dog to the Auburn equestrian meets. You can't do that everywhere. You can do it some places, but Auburn, you can do it. There's always dogs. And my wife, she loves taking pictures of the dogs, and she'll put together a photo album collections that is just dogs of the SEC tournament. So so yeah. Anyway, the equestrian tournament, it offers something for everybody, I guess is what I'm saying. Well, that is all for this episode. I'm your host, Auburn Elvis. Thank you very much for listening, and War Horses.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode on the E2C Network. On your way out, I want to remind you to stop by e2cnetwork.com. It's your one-stop shop for all our content across our podcast, YouTube channel, and much more. To stay up to date with us, make sure you're following social media accounts such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. While our content here may always be Auburn sports heavy, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. War Eagle.